Okay, welcome in another tutorial of the topic differentiation. In this tutorial, tutasoma the derivatives of composite functions by using a chain rule. Ulivyokuwa level ulisoma composite function. Y equals to fog of x. This was a composite function. So, ambapo hii fog of x was just the same as mtu aseme f gx. So can we find dy dx here? This is what our tutorial today covers. Yes, we can, and we use the chain rule. How do we solve the chain rule? Kwanza hii function ya ndani kabisa hii, you let hiyo sana u. So what does this mean? This means y sasa itakuwa sana f, badala ya g of x ni u. So look, from this u, from u equals to g of x, I can get du dx, which will just be equal to g dash x. And also from this one, y equals to f of u, I can get dy du, which is just f dash of u. So now my dy dx is just going to be equal to dy du times du dx. So my dy dx, hii sasa, by the way, hii ndio inaitwa chain rule. Iangalie vizuri. Dy dx equals to dy over du times du dx. Okay, ukiwaza fraction unaweza kusema du na du zinakufa na baki dy dx. So this is the chain rule. So this is what we are going to use today to solve the derivatives of composite functions. So dy dx is just equal to dy du tulipata ni f dash u times du dx tulipata ni g dash x. Kwa hiyo inakuwa jibu letu la mwisho. So this is the chain rule, and we are going to use it today to solve different composite functions. Let's see examples. Example 1. So we say find dy over dx if y equals to x squared minus 1 power 4. So this is some kind of a composite function. Look, from this one, y equals to x squared minus 1 power 4, I can let u equals to x squared minus 1. Kwa hiyo y sasa itakuwa sana u power 4. Then I can use the chain rule, which says that dy over dx is just equal to dy du times du dx. Okay, so this one is a chain rule. So dy du nitaipata from this equation here, and du dx nitaipata from this equation here. So let's start with dy du. So I know y equals to u power 4. This simply means that dy du is just equal to 4u power 3. I know you can solve this one. So we now, that is dy du. We now have du from u is equal to x squared minus 1. We have du dx. This will just be equal to d over dx, x squared minus d over dx, 1. So my du dx takwanza sana nikidifferentiate x squared napata 2x, na nikidifferentiate 1 napata 0, so napata 2x. Sasa to the chain rule hii hapa. Okay, this one is what we call the chain rule, dy dx. Okay, ni sawasawa tu na nichukue dy du ambayo ni hii ni kwapi, hii hapa 4u cube ni times na du dx ambayo ni hii 2x. So what's my answer? What do I get? I get dy dx is just equal to 4 times 2 is 8x u cube. What is u? We said u is x squared minus 1. So my final answer will be dy, sorry about that, nimeandika y kama u, dy over dx will just be equal to 8x times x squared minus 1. So this one now is the differential coefficient of y with respect to x. I mean power 3 kidogo ni sawi hapa. So so this one is the differential coefficient of y with respect to x when y equals to x squared minus 1. So this one now is our final answer. Okay, so we used the chain rule here to find the final answer. Well, we first found dy du, this, and then we found du dx, this. And then from chain rule, this one here, we just multiplied dy du to du dx, and we obtained the final answer. Let's see now another example. So, I mean, this chain rule is used when we are dealing with composite functions. Remember that. So, let's see an example like this one. Is say find dy dx if y equals to the square root of 2x squared minus 5x, like this one. So this is some kind of a composite function where, I mean, from this one 2x squared minus 5x, I can just let u iwe hii ndani 2x squared minus 5x. So my y is just equal to the radical of u. So I can solve now by using chain rule, okay? From chain rule, ambayo inaniambia kwamba dy dx is just equal to dy du times du dx. Okay, so hii ni chain rule, inabidi iwepo kichwani siku zote, and you need to know kwamba you use it when you are dealing with composite functions. Okay, ni ngumu sana ku differentiate composite function kama hauijui chain rule. Okay, kwa hiyo kwenye composite function we use chain rule. So I mean I can find dy du here and I can find du dx here. So from this one I can find dy du. From this I can find dy du. This is just the same as I say u power half. So from y equals to u power half I can find dy du. So najua kwamba I know that from y equals to x power n, dy over dx is just equal to n xn minus 1. Sawa, hii formula sipendi kuirudia, ila kwa sababu hapa ni half na sio namba ya kawaida nimeona niirudie tu. So I mean my n is half, so dy du is just half u half minus 1. Okay, so I mean my dy now du is just going to be equal to half and then u, nikisema half minus 1 napata negative half. So my dy du is just going to be equal to 1 over 2 u power positive half. Kumbe 1 over u power half ni sasa na u power negative half. Okay, hiyo ni exponents ya huko from 2. So write it in simple terms. My dy du is just going to be equal to 1 over 2 radical of u. So this is dy du. What about du dx? Because remember the chain rule, nachukua dy du times du dx to get dy dx. So I have my dy du here, dy du, which is just equal to 1 over 2 radical u, but my u is just equal to 2x squared minus 5x. So what about du dx? So du dx is just I differentiate. Okay, tumesoma derivatives of polynomials kwa tutorials za huko nyuma. 5x dx. So my du dx is just gonna be 2 is a constant naitoa nje, so this one is dx times x squared minus 5 naitoa nje, so this one is dx x. Okay, so my du now dx will just be equal to, I mean nikidifferentiate x square napata nini? 2x. Okay, ile form ambayo sipendaki kuirudia ndio naitumia hapo. Na nikidifferentiate x napata nini? 1. So my du now dx is just equal to 4x minus 5. This is my du dx, and I have my dy du. So my dy dx now, from chain rule, tumesema sasa sana nichukue dy du times du dx. So dy du ni 1/2 radical u times, du dx ambayo ni 4x minus 5. So dy dx itakuwa sasa sana 1 times huyo hapa anabaki mwenyewe 4x minus 5. Na huku chini tunabaki na 2 radical u. But what is u? Remember u? U ni hii hapa. U is 2x squared minus 5x. So this now is my final answer, for example, 2, which was y equals to the square root of 2x squared minus 5x. So if I find the derivative of y with respect to x, this now is my final answer, which I have obtained by using chain rule. So let's see another example, another composite function. Call this example 3. It says now find dy dx if y equals to 1/x plus 2 power 10. So this is also a composite function whereby I can let u equals to 1/x plus 2. Kwa manake y itakuwa sana u power 10. Now I know that from chain rule, dy dx is just equal to dy du times du dx, ambapo dy du naipata hapa and du dx naipata hapa. So let's start with dy du. So from y equals to u power 10, dy du is equal to 10 u power 9. Okay, napataje hapa ile formula ambayo sipendi kuirudia. Okay, I have already said kwamba inafika mahali inabidi tu unaweza kufanya automatic. Now I have u equals to 1/x plus 2. Nataka nitafute du dx. So this is just u equals to x plus 2 minus power negative 1. Now check this one. This is also a composite function. Okay, so I was dealing with a composite function using chain rule. I found out that I have another composite function inside a composite function. So I use that chain rule inside chain rule. How do I do that? Now I let this small function in the composite function to a certain variable. Now it should not be u because u is already like y now. So I will let w equals to x plus 2. Okay, so u now equals to w power negative 1. So now from chain rule, umeona, kwa hiyo sasa nimejikuta hii sasa yenyewe ambayo itakuwa nipe du dx nipachike hapa na yenyewe kumbe inabidi nitumie chain rule. So from chain rule now my du dx, okay, itakuwa sasa na du dw times dw dx. Okay, you can see dw na dw kama zinakufa hivi. Okay, hiyo ndo sheria ya chain rule. Sawa, it doesn't matter which letters you are using, lakini the independent variable hapa huku inakuwa dependent variable. Okay, kwa hiyo dw na dw inakuwa kama zinakufa hivi, japo hicho sicho kinachoendelea. Okay, so the derivation of chain rule, I have not talked about it in this video. So sorry about that. Maybe I'll talk about it in another video. But this is the formula for chain rule. So so I can get du dw here, and I can get dw dx here. Okay, so from this one u equals to w power negative 1, my du dw is just going to be equal to, I will use that formula now, it's going to be negative 1 ndo kama n. Okay, w ni x, this is negative 1 minus 1. Okay, n minus 1. So my du dw, my du now dw is just going to be equal to negative 1 times w, negative 1 minus negative 1, negative 2. Okay, so my du dw is just equal to negative w power negative 2, ambayo hii inaweza nikaandika as negative 1/w squared. But what's my w now? My w is x plus 2. So my dw dx is just going to be equal to dx plus d2 dx. So my dw now dx, nikidifferentiate x napata 1 na nikidifferentiate 2 which is a constant I just get 0 is equal to 1. This is dw dx. So now du dx ambayo nisema nitaipata kwa chain rule ambayo tulisema is just du dw times dw dx. Du now dx is just going to be equal to du dw is just -1 over w squared times 1. So du dx is just going to be equal to -1 times 1 is just -1 over w. We said w is x plus 2, so this one is squared. So this one is du dx. Remember we had dy du equals to 10 u power 9. So dy dx is just going to be equal to this times this, tuisha sema mwanzo. So it's just 10 u power 9 times -1 x plus 2 squared. So okay, tuko hapa dy dx is equal to dy du, this one 10 u power 9 times du dx. There. So what was u? Remember u to let ni sasa ile ya ndani. So I mean this is just dy dx is equal to 10 times 1 over x plus 2 power 9 times -1 over x plus 2 squared. So my dy now dx is just going to be equal to 10 times 1 power 9 ni 1 wakati x plus 2 power 9 times -1 over x plus 2 power 2. So we have 10 times 1 is 10, 10 times -1 is -10. And then this times this is just going to be equal to x plus 2 power 9 plus 2, which is 11. So dy dx is just going to be equal to -10 over x plus 2 power 11. Now this is my final answer when y was equal to 1 over x plus 2 power 10. Finding the derivative of y with respect to x will give me this guy here, -10 over x plus 2 power 11. This is 11. So thank you guys. See you in the next tutorial.